Hello, how are you? I hope that you are fine because today is Monday and we are going to watch a story about two mice. Do you know what are mice? One mouse and another mouse, and together they are mice. Okay. These mice live in two different places. One of them lived in the city and one of them lived in the countryside. Now let's watch the story.
One day, a mouse who lived in the city went to visit his friend. His friend had left the city a while back and began to live in the country. After his long journey, the city mouse had finally arrived next to his friend in the village.
This place smells awful. How do you live in such a place?
After a long and tiring walk, the city mouse finally arrived at his friend's field. The country mouse had made himself a house under the ground. This is where he lived.
How does my friend live in such a bad environment? I still don't understand.
The city mouse knocked on the door. The country mouse opened the door. He was very surprised, and at the same time, he also was very happy to see his friend.
Welcome, my friend! What brings you to this side of the town? I was bored from the city life. I've been meaning to come and see you and the way you live for some time now. But I can see that you're not all that happy. Says who? Why don't you come inside and I'll prepare something to eat?
They both came in. The city mouse was amazed to see the inside of his house, because the country mouse was living in a dark, small, airless little hole.
What a dark and tiny home you have. How do you live here?
The country mouse had prepared something for his friend to eat. On the table were a piece of cheese, lettuce, carrot, and kernels of corn.
Come on, my friend. Enjoy this dinner.
The city mouse had a look at all that was on the table and said,
You call this a feast? Back where we lived, the mice won't turn and have a second look at this type of food. We have cakes, pastries, variety of cheese and meat. You can find anything you desire in this city.
After the city mouse had finished his meal, they began to walk around the country mouse's hometown. The city mouse did not like where the country mouse was living at all.
These type of places are not for my liking at all. It's very dirty and boring. You must visit my hometown one day. I should take you around the city. You must see it. I'm sure you won't come back here.
The following morning, the two friends said their farewells. Soon after they had parted, the country mouse decided to visit his friend in the city, and so he began his journey. After a long journey, he arrived in the city. The country mouse arrived at his friend's house according to his friend's directions. The city mouse was living in an apartment. The country mouse was shocked when he saw where his friend was living.
This huge house is yours? Not exactly. I'm sharing the house with the landlords. I'm very hungry. Show me that amazing feast you were talking about.
The city mouse entered the kitchen, opened the fridge door, then took cheese, meat, and a variety of vegetables and fruit. He put them on the table, and as they began to eat, they heard a cat meowing. The city mouse jumped to say,
Oh no, the cat of the house heard us talking. We must hide. Follow me.
Both mice entered a hole in the wall and got away. Out of breath, the country mouse asked,
You live in the same house with the cat? this dangerous? It sure is, but this is the price I have to pay if I want to live in luxury and wealth.
After a short while, the cat left the kitchen, and they came out of the hole and continued to eat. A while later, they heard the street door open, and the city mouse panicked.
Come on, hurry up and run! The landlord came. Run before she sees us!
The mice ran back to the little hole, and the country mouse, out of breath, asked once again.
This time, I don't know why we ran. The lady landlord, doesn't she know you live here? Of course she doesn't. People are very dangerous. How do you live in a house like this? Well, it has its days, of course, but I'm very happy living this way. Look at this. I can eat whatever I want whenever I want. It's safe to go. Come on, let's continue eating.
The country mouse got out of the hole, but as soon as he got out, he walked towards the door and began to complain.
No, thank you, mister. I have lost my appetite. This much fear is enough for me. I'm leaving. Where are you going? I'm going back home. My house might not be rich, but I live in peace with my freedom. I'd rather live in peace and feel free than to live in fear all the time.
And so the country mouse returned to his poor lifestyle and continued to live happily. And he never returned to the city ever again.
Hey, I'm sure that you pay attention to the story about the two mice. Okay, as you can see, both mice live in a different place, and one of them visit to the other, and the country mouse visit to the city mouse, and the city mouse visit to the country mouse, right? Okay, so what did you find in the story that was so different in the two places? First, we're going to think about the mouse that lived in the countryside. The first mouse lived in a place like this one. Can you see that picture? Look, here I have the countryside. In the countryside, you can find a barn. Sometimes here there are cows and horses, and you can find the field here, some chicks, some pigs, a rooster. Sometimes you can find hens, rabbits, sheep, lamb, goat. So, the first mouse was from the city, and he was to visit his friend in the countryside, and it was a place like this. Do you remember? You could see the corn and a lot of soil on the ground, right? So the first mouse, the mouse from the city, visited the mouse from the countryside, and the countryside looked like this. After that, the country mouse went to visit to his friend in the city, and in the city he was walking by the street to get into the city mouse apartment. Do you remember that City Mouse lived in an apartment? And this is a building with a lot of apartments. Every window here is an apartment. Can you see? And it's very different from the countryside, right? But what happened in the story? The city mouse has to be running the whole time because in the city people can see him and he couldn't be free like the mouse in the countryside that he eat wherever he wants, wherever, in the time that he wanted. So, as you can see, the city and the countryside, they have a big difference. Every place have a lot of difference. So, what are you going to do now? On page 63, you're going to draw in one side what can you find in a city, and in the other side of the page, what can you find in the countryside? City and countryside on page 63. If you want to cut out some things that you can find in the city and in the countryside, it's okay, you can do it too. So you can draw or you can cut out things from the city and things from the countryside. Alright? Let's do it.